Okay, picture this. You're at brunch. Your friend starts bragging about her asset allocation, and somebody across the table is ranting about the interest on their car loan. Meanwhile, you're just smiling, nodding, and hoping nobody asks a follow-up question. Deep down, you're wondering whether compound interest is a finance term or a skin condition. If that sounds a little too familiar, relax. You are not behind, and you are definitely not dumb. The truth is, most of us were never taught this stuff in school. We learned how to label a plant cell, but somehow nobody explained why paying off debt can mess with your credit score for a minute. Cute. Very helpful. So today, we're fixing that by breaking down the basic financial concepts that actually show up in real life. I'm Vanessa, and I like making money talk feel way less intimidating and way more human. So if you're over pretending to understand inflation, credit, and interest rates every time they come up, stick with me. And if this video helps make money make sense, go ahead and subscribe and give it a like. Here's the crazy part. Whether you can afford an apartment, what kind of car payment won't wreck your month, when retirement becomes realistic, and whether that beach trip lives in your camera roll or in your actual life. And somehow we're all supposed to just figure this out alone. Like adulthood is one giant escape room and the reward is staying solve it. But here's the good news. These concepts are not nearly as complicated as people make them sound. They just get dressed up in weird finance language that makes everything feel 10 times scarier than it is. By the end of this video, you're going to understand the core ideas that run the money world, and more importantly, how to stop letting them run you. Let's start with the thing that attacks your paycheck every single month. Taxes. Imagine this. You had a rough month at work, picked up extra shifts, answered emails way too late at night, and you're feeling pretty good about that upcoming paycheck. Then payday hits. You see that nice, juicy gross pay number sitting at the top, and for one beautiful second, life feels promising. Then you look lower. Federal income tax, state tax, Social Security, Medicare, and suddenly that paycheck got humbled fast. It's like watching your money walk it into a room, fabulous, and walk out wearing half the outfit. That's taxes. The classic experience of earning money and then immediately watching part of it vanish. But taxes are not just random punishment from the universe. They're basically the price of living in an organized society. You pay them, and in return, you get roads that are usually drivable, public schools that keep the next generation educated enough to also complain about taxes, food inspections that make your favorite sandwich shop less risky, and yes, a whole lot of government spending you did not personally approve. There are different kinds of taxes, and each one has its own little personality. Income tax comes out of the money you earn from working. Sales tax shows up when you buy things. Capital gains tax applies when your investments make money, because apparently your money is not allowed to thrive quietly. On top of that, most people also pay Social Security tax and Medicare tax. Social Security is basically forced retirement saving through the government. You pay into the system now, and later in life you may get monthly benefits back. Medicare tax helps fund health care for older adults and some people with certain health conditions. And then there's filing your taxes, which is such a weird setup when you really think about it. The government often already has a pretty good idea of what you owe, but you still have to fill everything out and hope you got it right. It's like being handed a test where the teacher already knows the answer key, but still wants to watch you sweat. If you do it correctly, amazing, carry on. If you don't, the IRS suddenly becomes very interested in your life. But here's the part people forget. Countries with higher taxes often have stronger infrastructure, better public services, and broader safety nets. So yes, it stings to watch money leave your paycheck. But ideally, that money is helping the whole system function a little better. Next, let's talk about banks, because most people have a very cute but very inaccurate idea of what banks do with their money. When you deposit money at a bank, it's easy to imagine your cash sitting in some giant vault, perfectly stacked, guarded by cameras, steel doors, and maybe one dramatic laser beam for effect. But that's not really how it works. The reality is way less cinematic. Banks are not just giant safes. They're more like money middlemen. When you deposit $1,000, the bank does not keep all $1,000 sitting there waiting for your return. It keeps a portion available and lends the rest out to other people who want to do things like finance a used car, open a bakery, or pay for a home renovation. That setup is called fractional reserve banking, and it works because banks assume not everybody is going to show up on the same day asking for all their money back at once. Usually that assumption holds. When it doesn't, things get messy fast. That's basically what happens during a bank run. Confidence disappears, everyone panics, and suddenly the whole system feels a little flimsy. So how do banks actually make money? Super simple. They pay you a low interest rate to hold your money, then lend that money out to someone else at a higher interest rate. That spread is profit. You provide the money supply, borrowers create demand, and the bank takes a nice slice in the middle. Now, why would you agree to that? Because banks do offer some real benefits. First, using a debit card or making an online transfer is a whole lot easier than carrying around envelopes of cash like you're settling secret deals in a parking garage. Second, banks usually pay you at least a little interest, even if the amount can feel borderline insulting. And third, it's a lot safer than stashing your savings in a dresser drawer. In the United States, most bank deposits are insured up to $250,000 per person, which means your money is protected even if the bank gets itself into trouble. That brings us to one of the biggest ideas in personal finance: interest. Let's say you borrow $1,000 and later have to pay back $1,260. That extra $260 is interest. Interest is basically the cost of using somebody else's money. If you're borrowing, interest is the fee. If you're saving or lending, interest is the reward for letting someone else use your money for a while. There are two main types, and knowing the difference can seriously change your financial life: simple interest and compound interest. Simple interest is the easy one. It's calculated only on the original amount. Nice, clean, straightforward. Compound interest is where things get spicy. That's interest earning interest. It's growth on top of growth, or debt on top of debt, depending on which side you're on. Here's the dangerous version. Let's say you put a pair of headphones on a credit card, and then don't pay the balance off. Now interest starts building. Then, next month, you're paying interest not only on what you originally bought, but also on the interest that already got added. That's how one random purchase turns into an expensive little reminder that credit card debt does not play nice. But compound interest can also be the hottest thing in your financial life when it's working for you. If you invest money and earn returns over time, those returns start earning returns too. Then that growth builds on itself again and again. It snowballs, slowly at first, then all at once. You look up years later and realize your younger self did you a massive favor just by getting started early. That's why interest matters so much. It's quietly sitting underneath both financial progress and financial pain. When you're paying interest on debt, it can turn small mistakes into long-term stress. When you're earning interest through investing or saving, it can turn study habits into real wealth. So the basic strategy is simple, even if it takes discipline. If interest is costing you money, especially high-interest debt, get rid of it fast. If interest is making you money, keep feeding it and give it time. Interest is either helping build your future or draining it. There really isn't much in between. Now let's talk about inflation, the sneaky little force that makes your money feel weaker over time. You go to the store, grab the same box of cereal you've bought forever, and suddenly it costs way more than it used to. And just to make it extra rude, the box somehow feels lighter too. That activate the bottom breakers movement. Inflation and shrinkflation teaming up on you. Your money buys less. And inflation is basically the loss of purchasing power over time. So, inflation is basically the loss of purchasing power over time. Your money still says the same number on it, but it doesn't stretch as far. $10 is still $10, but it starts behaving like an exhausted version of itself. So why does inflation happen? Sometimes there's too much money chasing too few products. Imagine a ton of people all trying to buy the same concert tickets, but there are only a limited number available. Prices shoot up because demand is high and supply is tight. Other times, production costs rise. Materials cost more, shipping costs more, labor costs more, and businesses usually pass those higher costs right along to you. And sometimes inflation rises simply because people expect it to. If everyone assumes prices will keep going up, they spend faster, which can help push prices up even more. A little inflation is normal. Economists usually like a low, steady amount, around 2% a year. That's considered healthy. But when inflation jumps too quickly, your savings can lose value fast, and your paycheck often doesn't keep up. That's when everything feels more expensive all at once. To fight inflation, central banks often raise interest rates. The idea is that if borrowing gets more expensive, people and businesses spend less, which cools the economy down. It's basically the financial version of turning down the heat before the whole pot boils over. That leads perfectly into recessions, because when the economy cools too much, things can get rough. A recession is when the economy shrinks for at least 2 quarters in a row, which means about 6 months of economic slowdown. In regular life, that can look like layoffs, lower consumer spending, anxious headlines, and investment accounts suddenly looking a lot less cute. During a recession, people get cautious. Businesses cut back, hiring slows down or stops. Families cancel plans, skip major purchases, and start treating every dollar like it has to justify its existence. People hold on to old laptops longer, cook at home more, and postpone anything that feels optional. Recessions happen for different reasons. Sometimes interest rates get too high and borrowing slows everything down. Sometimes there's a major global shock that throws the economy off balance. Sometimes it's just part of the normal cycle. Economies expand, overheat, contract, recover, and then do it all again. Think of the economy like a rooftop party. In the good phase, the playlist is perfect, everyone's ordering appetizers, and nobody's checking prices. Then eventually, the mood shifts. Suddenly, people are side-eyeing the bill, talking about budgets, and heading home early. That's the recession vibe. Less confidence, less spending, less momentum. The upside is that recessions do end. They are painful, but they're not forever. Governments may cut interest rates, increase spending, or try other moves to encourage growth again. Over time, businesses start hiring, consumers start spending, and the economy begins to recover, even if the scars take a while to fade. Now, let's get into something that quietly follows you everywhere: your credit score. Your credit score is basically your financial reputation in one little 3-digit number. It tells lenders how risky you might be if they let you borrow money. It's not really measuring how rich you are, it's measuring how reliably you handle debt. Credit scores usually range from 300 to 850. If your score is low, lenders see more risk. If it's high, you look much more trustworthy. And that matters because your score can affect whether you get approved for loans, what interest rate you get, whether you can rent certain apartments, and sometimes even more than that. So, what affects your score? The biggest factor is payment history. Do you actually pay your bills on time? Then there's credit utilization, which looks at how much of your available credit you're using. If you have a $5,000 limit and you're constantly sitting near the max, that can hurt you. It signals stress. Length of credit history also matters. Older accounts help show stability. Credit mix looks at whether you can handle different types of credit responsibly. And new credit inquiries track how often you're applying for more credit in a short period of time. And yes, the system is a little ridiculous. You need to use credit to build credit, but not too much credit, and not in the wrong way, and not too fast. It's like being told to prove you're responsible by participating in a game that can punish you for playing it badly. Your credit score is one of those things you can ignore for a while, until suddenly you really can't. If you take care of it, it can save you a ton of money over time. If you neglect it, It can make basic adult milestones way more expensive than they need to be. And here's the really weird part. You can have no debt at all and still not have a strong score if you haven't built much credit history. So being financially careful doesn't automatically mean the system rewards you right away. You still have to show a track record. Speaking of made-up systems we all agree to believe in, let's talk about money itself. Money is honestly one of the strangest inventions ever. It works because we all collectively decided it works. A dollar bill is just paper. The number in your bank app is just data. But because society agrees those things represent value, they can be exchanged for food, rent, gas, clothes, and everything else. That's the magic in the weirdness of money. It isn't valuable because it's inherently special. It's valuable because people trust the system behind it. The same basic idea applies to gold, crypto, and any other asset people are willing to trade for real goods and services. If enough people believe something has value, it functions like value. So how does this actually work day to day? Governments issue currency. Central banks help manage the money supply. Banks move money through the economy. And all of us keep the whole thing alive by accepting money in exchange for labor, products, and services. But that balance matters. If too much money floods the system, inflation can take off, and the value of savings starts slipping. If there isn't enough money moving around, spending slows, businesses struggle, and the economy can seize up in a different way. At the core, money is really a social agreement built on trust. As long as people believe in the system keeps going. When trust cracks, things can get unstable very quickly. So, looking back at everything we covered, you've now got a much stronger handle on the basics. Taxes help fund society. Banks act like middlemen. Interest can either grow your wealth or drag you down. Inflation quietly eats purchasing power. Recessions are painful but temporary. Credit scores follow you around, and money itself only works because we all agree it does. The big takeaway is this: you do not need to be some genius finance person to get better with money. You just need to understand the rules well enough to stop getting blindsided by them. Time matters, compound interest matters, your habits matter, and the sooner you start paying attention, the easier this all gets. So go ahead, show up to the next brunch, family dinner, or awkward group chat a little less confused and a lot more dangerous.